I think the worst and most painful thing that can happen is if someone sees my writing and glazes over and shrugs because it doesn't interest them. I don't know why this is so scary, but it is. This comment really came straight into my heart. I know this place. I know how profound these fears can be and also how crippling they can be. So let's just come to the full comment. I think the thing that keeps me coming back is that I want to live out a narrative with my favourite characters. But I'm afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid that I'm not good enough, that I won't do them justice, and that the other person who ends up reading it will not care about the thing that I've spent all my time on. Like, I wouldn't even mind if they read my stuff and laughed at how bad it is, as long as they continued to read it, aka Twilight. This comment really taps into that core evolutionary program that we have, which is fear. I think that phrase, I don't know why it's so scary to me, it just is. For me as a coach, like that really stood out to me because we often have fears and we don't understand why we've got them. It's not like we can think about an experience that we had and we can say, I understand why I have that fear. So fear is designed to keep us safe. For example, if I reach out and touch a hot surface and I burn myself, I'm going to generate a fear of hot surfaces, which is great because it's going to keep me safe. It's going to keep me safe from burning myself in the future. If I have a fear of the dark, again, it's going to keep me safe because it's going to stop me going out into potentially dangerous situations. Now, we can often be afraid of our fear because fear can feel just so uncomfortable. It can feel so scary. It can feel in our body like it's a really terrifying experience. But again, all of those sensations and discomforts are designed to keep us safe. They're designed to stop us doing something that could threaten our life. Now, it makes sense in the context of touching a hot stove or not going out when it's dark, but does it make sense with our writing? And that's why it can be so challenging. As a creative soul, we've got this desire, like as the comment says, they keep coming back. They want to write this narrative with their favorite characters, but there's this fear there. It helps to really understand that fear can be created as a genetic hand-me-down. There have been studies done in animals that show that through generations, a fear can be passed from animal to animal. And it makes sense, right? Because if we come from an animal that has survived a bear attack, that animal is going to want to find a way to pass down to its offspring a fear of bears. This is why we can end up having a fear and we don't really understand why. We just have it. It's a fear that's been passed down genetically. This has also been proven in studies with twins as well. We've had amazing examples of a fear of fire being passed down through the bloodline in humans. So twins being born with a fear of fire, even though they've never experienced fire. This is why we can have fears around our writing, even though it doesn't really make sense, even though having a fear of somebody not liking our writing or somebody just shrugging and caring about it, even though that's not life-threatening, we can still have a fear of it. What's this all about and how can we begin to overcome it? I mean, for me, this is exactly what we want to overcome, right? And it's exactly the issues and the problems that I work with many of the clients in my community. They want to write stories, they want to have this impact, they want to be communicating things online. But if there's a fear there, it's going to hold them back, it's going to cause them to procrastinate. What we need to understand is that we have these evolved fears, but they no longer apply. What we do here is to imagine how this fear of nobody caring about our writing, or this fear of insignificance, might have kept our ancestors safe. If we go back generations, if we go back hundreds of thousands of years, we understand that our ancestors survived because they lived in communities. We couldn't go out on our own. And really, we still have that today. We still thrive when we're in a community, but we could survive if we weren't part of a community. So times have really changed. But thousands of years ago, our ancestors needed people to be interested in them. They needed people to care about them. They needed to be significant within a community. Otherwise, they might get left behind, or they might even get kicked out of the community. So it makes sense that there was this fear of doing something that might expose themselves as not being worthwhile to the community, because they're not going to want to get kicked out. They're not going to want to do something that shows the rest of their tribe, actually, we don't really know why this person is a part of this community. What they're doing doesn't interest us. What they're doing doesn't resonate with us. In fact, we no longer want this person in our community. We would have learned a fear around exposing something that's going to make someone think that we're boring or of no interest or of no value. But of course, that fear doesn't apply today. The world is so different. We've got a fear from an old way of living that doesn't fit with a new way of living. And that means, ironically, that we're holding ourselves back from creating a community around us that does fit with us. Okay, I'm not going to be able to sit here and say everyone is going to be interested in what you have to say. Everyone is going to be thrilled by your writing. It's certainly not the case with me, and it's certainly not the case with any other person whose writing I've connected with. I've read similar books, or I've read the same books as friends or family members, and we haven't agreed that it's a fantastic book. I've seen content online that has a thumbs up but also has a thumbs down. So it's pretty okay to accept that not everybody is going to be interested in it. But we have to understand that there's that evolved fear that doesn't want to put ourselves in a position where too many people aren't interested in it. But what that means is we're not speaking out or showing up and allowing ourselves to be seen by the people who would be interested in what we have to say and what we have to write. So it helps to understand how your ancestors would have benefited from the fear that you have around your writing, the fear that you have around not being interesting or not being significant. But then it also helps to understand how you can be enough. Now, this first starts with being enough for you. Because here's the thing, if we can be enough for us, then we can be our first tribe member. And if we believe that our writing is enough and important for ourselves, it then makes it easier to retrain our brain to believe that it could also be enough for somebody else. We only really need that first member of our tribe to prove that to ourselves. So take a moment to really tune in and really ask yourself, how is my writing enough for me? How is what I'm writing about interesting to me? How is it enough? And then to start to imagine if it's enough for you, how it can be enough for somebody else. I find it really useful to actually take some time to journal on this. Like, I would encourage you to take longer than I usually take when I do journaling exercises in my video. Like, we might usually just take 1 or 2 minutes to journal together, but I would really encourage you to take 5 or 10 minutes to firstly explore whatever this fear is around your writing, whatever this fear is around showing up, whatever this fear is around showing people your work. And firstly, to explore how might this fear have kept my ancestors safe, so you understand why you have it, but to also understand why it's no longer relevant for today's society, for the context that you find yourself in, and then how you and the way that you write, the way that you create is enough for you, and then how that can be enough for one other person. I find it can be really valuable to start with that one person, because you start with one and then you imagine that one person telling another person, and that another person perhaps telling 10 people, and those 10 people telling another person each. And suddenly you've gone from an audience of 1 to an audience of 100 to an audience of 1,000. And that's how we grow. And by showing up and communicating what's important to us, we have a chance to attract the people who are interested in what we're saying. I'd love to hear from you, my friend. If you've got this far in the video, I'd love to share what I've given you today. I'd love for you to share what it's like for you to imagine that you are enough for you. It would be really beautiful to experience your insights around that question. And if this content has meant something for you and you feel drawn to check out more of what I do, perhaps even become a part of my private community, then you will find a link in the comments below. We would love to have you join us. And also, if you've got a question, if you've got an ask, if you've got a share that you want me to include in a future video, let me know in the comments below. And that way you can have an entire video that's really going to help you take that next step with your creative dream. Wishing you so much love today and looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.